Dawn came slowly over the high desert, the way a lamp is turned up in a lonely room, cautious, reluctant, touching only what it must. The sky bloomed in quiet bands of rose and pale gold, and the land answered with a hush, as though every stone and brittle stalk of grass knew that the first light of day was sacred. Dust drifted in thin ribbons above the earth, catching the sunlight like floating ash. And through that ash rode Cole Hartwell. He sat tall on his bay mare, shoulders squared, hat brim tugged low as if shielding him from a world he wasn't ready to face. His breath formed little clouds in the cool air, dissolving before they could become anything permanent, just like most things in his life. Folks often said Cole was the kind of man the wind couldn't move. But they didn't see the way his jaw tightened each morning, as if the rising sun pressed on some old bruise inside him. Cole Hartwell wasn't avoiding the world. He was surviving it in the only way he knew, quietly. The land around him stretched wide and empty, sagebrush rolling toward the distant mesas. A kestrel perched on a dead branch, wings tucked in tight. A jackrabbit darted across the trail. The desert carried the smell of mesquite smoke, faint, drifting from somewhere miles off. Someone else's fire. Cole inhaled it deeply. Someone else's warmth, he thought. Not mine. He nudged his horse toward town, though his heart dragged behind him like a rusted tin can. The weight he carried. Cole's grief was an old creature now, familiar as the scars on his knuckles. 5 winters ago, when sickness swept through the territory, he lost the only woman he had ever truly allowed to see him. She had gone quickly, like a candle snuffed in a gust. Since then, life had been a landscape of unfinished fences, quiet meals, and nights too long for any man to lie awake in. It wasn't that he hated people. It wasn't even that he feared love. He just feared the cost of it. So when women in town tried to bring him back into the warm circle of living, he stepped aside, polite as a mourner at the church gate. And still they tried, perhaps drawn by the woundedness in his eyes, perhaps hoping to mend something that didn't want mending. The first rays of sunlight caught his profile as he reached the edge of town, turning him into a silhouette carved from copper and memory. The town's quiet judgment. The general store smelled of ground flour, coffee beans, and people's expectations. Cole stepped inside for nails and lamp oil. The old wooden floorboards groaned, announcing him before he spoke a word. Mara Tilly, a kind-eyed young woman with auburn braids, approached him with a loaf of still warm bread. She held it like a peace offering. "Fresh out of the oven," she said, voice soft. Thought, well, you might want something warm this morning. Cole's fingers brushed the crust. Warm indeed. Too warm. Something tightened in his throat. "I appreciate it, Mara." He placed it gently back in her hands. "But I've got enough at home." The hurt flickered across her face before she could hide it. She stepped back, turning the loaf in her palms as though unsure what to do with the warmth now that he had refused it. Behind them, a pair of townsfolk exchanged glances. Strange man. Doesn't know how to be human anymore. Cole heard them. He always heard them. He just didn't respond. Sheriff Amos Calder, leaning near the hat display, said quietly as Cole passed him, "A man ain't meant to live like a ghost, Hartwell." Cole paused, letting the words settle in his chest. "I'm living, Amos," he answered. "Just not the way others want me to." The sheriff nodded, but his eyes held worry. Cole tipped his hat and stepped back into the morning light, where judgment felt thinner, like smoke dissipating into sky. The ranch, a mirror of his heart. Cole's ranch sat several miles outside town, a patch of land that had grown tired under neglect. The fence posts leaned like old men at rest. The barn roof sagged in one corner. Only 2 horses grazed in the paddock, the rest sold off after his wife's death, when money grew tight and grief made everything feel heavier than a man could lift. The ranch mirrored Cole's soul, not broken, but hollowed. Functional, but without laughter. Alive, but barely. He tied his mare to the post and walked toward the shed to begin fixing the hinges, anything to keep his hands busy and his mind quiet. That's when he saw them, faint impressions in the dust. Footprints. Light. Careful. Apache. Cole crouched beside them, running a thumb along the edge of the trail. The tracks were fresh. Made by someone small and swift, likely a woman. He straightened slowly, tension settling across his shoulders. "Not good," he murmured, though his voice held no anger, Only caution. He followed the tracks toward the creek. A stranger at the water. The creek whispered softly over stones, the sound like someone humming a forgotten lullaby. There, kneeling by the water, was a woman. Dark hair woven into 2 braids. Clothes travel-worn. Back straight, as if refusing the world any opportunity to bend her. She filled a canteen with deliberate care. When she sensed him, she didn't gasp or scramble for cover. She simply turned her head slightly, acknowledging him the way one acknowledges a hawk circling nearby, aware, unafraid. "I mean no trouble," she said calmly in accented but steady English. Cole approached slowly, hands visible. "This is private land." "I did not come for land," she answered. "Only for water." Her eyes lifted to his, dark, ancient, unblinking. There was a quiet power there, not aggressive but unwavering. An Apache widow, he realized. Alone. "What happened to your camp?" he asked. She hesitated, then answered with a sigh shaped like a long road behind her. "Storm took the shelter. Fire took the rest." Cole studied her hands. Trembling just enough to betray exhaustion she tried to hide. "You traveling alone?" he asked. "I travel with the memories of those I lost," she replied. "They are company enough." Her voice carried no pity, only truth. 2 souls measuring each other. They stood in silence a long moment, the desert wind brushing between them. Cole felt something shift inside him, not sympathy, but recognition. Here was another ghost walker. Another soul shaped by absence. He lifted her pack without asking and secured it to his horse. A gesture, not a declaration. She nodded once, a quiet acceptance. They walked toward the ranch together, the sky glowing deeper gold as the sun climbed. The question that cut to the bone. Halfway to the house, with dust swirling around their boots, the woman spoke again. "My name is Tala Redbird," she said. "And you push people away before they can push you first." Cole inhaled sharply. She had known him less than an hour, yet saw him clearer than most in town. Noya looked at him, her expression unreadable. Then, softly but without hesitation. "Tell me, Cole Hartwell, do you want a wife someday? Or just shelter from your own loneliness?" Her words landed like a blade wrapped in velvet, sharp but warm. Cole stopped walking. The dust settled around them. The morning sun painted their shadows long on the ground. He had no answer, and the silence between them felt like the beginning of something neither of them yet understood. Evening crept across the land like a blanket drawn over weary shoulders. The desert cooled, the sky shifting from molten gold to a bruised violet. Crickets emerged, singing their thin, trembling hymns to the dusk. And in that soft, dimming light, Cole Hartwell found himself walking beside Tala Redbird, a woman carved by wind and hardship, yet moving with the quiet dignity of a mountain cat. They did not speak for some time. Some truths breathed easier in silence. Noya's question still hung between them like a lantern left swinging on a porch beam. "Do you want a wife, or just shelter from your own loneliness?" Cole had no words for it then. He barely had air. Now, with the ranch house coming into view, a weary structure with its sagging roof and peeling paint, he felt that question tug at the ribs inside him. Loneliness was one thing a man could survive. Naming it was something else entirely. At the threshold of a broken home. When they reached the front steps, Cole hesitated. Noya did not. She ran her fingers along a cracked porch post, her eyes lingering on broken shutters, the mud-caked boots by the door, the thin chimney pipe that hadn't smoked in days. "This place," she murmured, "feels like it's waiting for someone to breathe life into it." Cole swallowed. "It used to feel alive." "With your wife?" she asked gently. He nodded once. Noya didn't respond with pity. She simply stepped inside, ducking her head under the doorway. The quiet inside. The house smelled faintly of cedar and dust. A single chair. A half-mended saddle. A table scarred by years of meals, arguments, prayers. On the far wall, a quilt hung, a thing of faded blues and dusk pinks, the last piece of warmth his late wife ever made. Noya paused before it. Did she sew this? Yes. She had hands that loved softness, Noya murmured. Women like that leave warmth on the things they touch. Cole felt his chest tighten, the kind of pain that comes not from injury, but from memory trying to breathe again. Noya set her canteen on the table. "I will sleep outside by the barn," she said. "I do not wish to disrespect the space that belonged to her." Cole shook his head. "You can take the spare room. It's not much, but it has walls, and walls matter." She considered him carefully. Walls matter less than intention. But she followed him anyway. 2 rooms, 2 burdens. Cole lit the oil lamp. The flame flickered uncertainly, casting thin shadows across the grain of the wood. "This room has been empty a long time," he said. Noya traced the dust on the dresser with a fingertip. "Sometimes empty rooms listen better than full ones." Cole rubbed the back of his neck. "You hungry?" "I have eaten little these past days," she admitted. He nodded, then motioned for her to follow him into the kitchen. He heated a pot of beans and tore off thick slices of cornbread. Noya sat across from him on a stool, posture straight, eyes steady. "How long have you been traveling alone?" he asked. 7 moons. "That long?" "The world does not pause when we lose things," she said quietly. "It only tests whether we still wish to keep walking." Cole felt those words settle deep. "And you?" she asked. "How long have you been walking alone inside yourself?" Cole froze, as if she had reached directly into the hollow behind his ribs where grief stored its ashes. Finally, he whispered, 5 winters. Noya bowed her head slightly. "We carry the dead with us, Cole Hartwell. That is not shameful. It becomes shame only when we let the living starve because of it." He stiffened. "I don't." Her gaze lifted to his, patient but unyielding. "You starve yourself," she said. "Not for food. For warmth. For gentleness. For someone to see you." Cole looked down at his hands, rough and calloused. "Maybe I don't deserve any of that." Noya leaned forward, her voice barely above a breath. "No one survives the desert by believing they deserve nothing." A night of small grace. Later, after they ate, Cole stepped outside to breathe. The sky overhead swelled with stars, so bright and innumerable they looked like 1,000 openings in the blanket of night. He heard footsteps behind him. "Noya!" She stood beside him, eyes fixed on the stars. "My people say each star is a reminder that someone once lived," she whispered. "Even the faintest ones have a place." Cole exhaled slowly. "I don't know where my place is anymore." Noya considered him quietly. "You are still searching." "That makes me a fool." "It makes you human." A quiet beat passed. Wind swept across the field, stirring the dry grass into a soft whisper. Without looking at him, Noya reached out, just barely, and brushed the back of his hand with her fingers. Not holding. Just a moment of contact, as if testing whether the world would break open if 2 lonely souls touched. It didn't. But Cole did feel something stir, something warm and aching and new. A small act of grace. A gesture. Not a declaration. The threat in the dark. Their moment was interrupted by the distant crunch of footsteps on gravel. Cole stiffened instantly. Noya had already turned toward the sound, her body poised like a doe sensing danger. From the darkness near the fence line emerged Jed Carter, a rancher with a face shaped by spite and sunburn. 2 other men flanked him, men whose laughter always held meanness under it. "Well, well," Jed drawled. "Cole Hartwell finally found himself some company. Didn't think your kind took in Apache strays." Cole stepped forward, shoulders squaring. "She's here as my guest." Jed spit into the dirt. "Town ain't too happy about Indians wandering around these days. Some folks think they cause trouble." "Some folks cause their own trouble," Cole said evenly. Jed's lip curled. "Careful, Hartwell. Lot of people watching what you do lately." That word, watching, carried the weight of judgment, of gossip sharpened like knives. Noya stood still, chin lifted, unafraid. Jed took a step closer. "You keep her here, and people are gonna say you've lost your damn mind." Cole didn't blink. "Then let them talk." Jed smirked. "Oh, they will." He turned, boots grinding the gravel, and the men walked back into the dark. After the men were gone, Noya remained quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke softly. "I have brought trouble to your door." Cole shook his head. "No. They brought their own ugliness. You've brought nothing but honesty." She studied him, searching his face for the part that still hid behind walls. "You do not know me," she whispered. "No," he said, voice low. "But I'd like to." Something softened in her then. Something fragile. Something that had been braced for rejection and had not found it here. Two souls by the lantern light. Inside, the lamp glowed warm on the table. Noya sat, braiding her hair slowly. Cole watched from across the room, feeling a strange peace settle over him. In her presence, he felt less like a ghost. More like a man learning to breathe again. Noya's voice floated through the dim room. "Tomorrow," she said, "I will help mend your fence. Broken things deserve hands willing to fix them." Cole met her gaze, feeling the first ember of something he had not dared hope for. "What about broken people?" he asked. She held his eyes a long moment. "They deserve the same." The next morning rose pale and hesitant, as though the sun itself was unsure whether it had permission to shine on two souls who had lived too long in shadow. Mist drifted low across the field, soft as breath on a cold windowpane. Cole Hartwell stepped outside, boots sinking into dew-damp earth, and found Tala Redbird already awake. She stood near the warped fence line, her braids stirring in the breeze, her fingers testing the loose rails as if reading the story of the ranch through its wounds. "You don't rest much, do you?" Cole asked gently. "I rest when life allows it," she said, turning toward him. "And life rarely asks permission." Cole moved beside her, hands brushing a broken plank. "Fence hasn't stood straight in years. Guess I didn't give it reason to." Noya tilted her head. "Even sagging things stand again when someone believes they should." Her words were simple, but to Cole, they were a spark inside the long empty hearth of his chest. Working side by side, they worked through the morning, measuring rails, digging new post holes, settling the earth around each beam. Their rhythm grew natural, almost intimate. He lifted the heavier pieces, she positioned them with the precision of someone who had mended shelters in winter storms. Gestures spoke more than their voices. When Cole handed her a hammer, he lingered a second longer than needed. When she steadied a board as he nailed it, her fingers brushed his wrist like a whisper. When sweat gathered on her temples, she pushed her hair back with the back of her hand, not wanting him to see the exhaustion beneath her courage. And Cole saw it anyway. "You should rest," he murmured. She shook her head. "When people have little, they give more. That is how we survive." A silence settled, warm and fragile. "You don't have to prove anything here," Cole said. Noya looked at him, eyes dark and searching. "Neither do you." He felt the truth of that sink deeper than any nail he drove into the wood. The storm of men. By midday, clouds gathered over the mountains, thick, gray, muttering threats. But it wasn't thunder that reached them first. It was hooves. 3 horses crested the ridge. Cole recognized the riders instantly. Jed Carter. And the 2 men who followed him like hungry shadows. Noya straightened, her expression calm but alert. Cole stepped in front of her. "What do you want, Jed?" Jed's grin spread slow and mean. "Town's buzzing, Hartwell. Folks don't take kindly to an Apache woman hiding out on a ranch like this." "She's not hiding," Cole said, voice low. "She's living." Jed spat. "Not what the sheriff thinks. Not what decent people think either." Cole felt heat rise in him, a sharp, thrumming anger he hadn't tasted in years. "You leave now," he said, "or we'll have a problem." Jed swung one leg off his saddle, boots hitting the dirt with a thud. "Maybe that's why we're here. Maybe the problem already started." The wind whipped through the field. The broken fence behind them stood half-mended, like a promise caught between becoming and breaking. Noya stepped forward. "If you came for me, I will go." Cole turned sharply. "No. You're not going anywhere." Her eyes softened, but her voice stayed steady. "I will not let your home be burned by hatred meant for me." Jed smirked. "Look at that, she knows her place." Cole moved faster than thought. He grabbed Jed by the shirt and slammed him against the fence post. The rails rattled. Birds scattered from nearby brush. You don't talk to her, Cole growled. Not like that, not ever. Jed's men started forward, but Noya raised a hand, stopping them, not by force, but by the calm authority in her posture. This fight is not needed, she said quietly. Let words be the only wounds here. But Jed had never been the type to listen to grace. He yanked himself free and swung at Cole. The punch landed hard. Cole staggered back, tasting iron, breath knocked loose. The ground seemed to tilt for a moment. Then something inside him, not anger, not pride, but purpose, surged awake. He stepped forward again, fists clenched. Not to prove something, not to win a fight, but because Noya was watching. And no man deserved to face the world alone when someone finally stood beside him. Jed swung again. Cole blocked, grabbed his arm, and drove him into the dirt. The other two men charged but froze when Cole's voice roared across the field. Enough! It was not a shout of violence. It was a declaration born from long-buried strength. Jed struggled up, breathing hard. This ain't over, he spat. It is, Cole said. You'll leave her be. You'll leave us be. Jed hesitated, saw the conviction in Cole's posture, the steadiness in Noya's gaze, and finally turned his horse. The men rode off, leaving only the churned dust and the trembling air behind them. The silence after the storm. Cole wiped blood from his lip, breathing hard. Noya stepped toward him, her hands trembling though she tried to hide it. You should not have fought for me, she whispered. I didn't fight for you, he answered, voice rough. I fought because losing one more thing would have broken something in me I can't rebuild. Her eyes glistened, not with tears, but with recognition. You are not as alone as you think, Cole Hartwell. And neither are you. They stood there in the soft, cooling air, the half-mended fence beside them standing straighter than before, like hope learning how to stretch. Where hope stands tall. The storm clouds broke apart as the afternoon light returned, draping the land in gold. Cole and Noya walked the fence line together, their hands brushing now and then, not by accident, not by boldness, but by quiet permission. They fixed the last rail as the sun dipped low. And when Cole stepped back, he realized something astonishing. The fence stood straight, sturdier than it had in years. Stronger because two wounded people had rebuilt it together. Noya looked at their work, then at him. It stands, she said softly. So do we, he replied. She reached up and touched his cheek, not claiming him, not promising him, just acknowledging him. And he closed his eyes, letting that small grace settle deep inside him. Not all love begins with fire. Some begins with a single ember, protected, nurtured, allowed to breathe, until one day, without fanfare, it becomes a light big enough to live by.